Okay, so this morning I'm going to work on making sourdough bread because I just used the rest of it yesterday for breakfast. And I use a mix of hard red and hard white berries. I do 275 grams of both. So I'm going to get those measured out. My husband is taking the boys back to Lowell because we're supposed to be getting snow later. So I'm kind of debating, do I go ahead and make English muffins this morning, or do I gamble on being off tomorrow and wait and make those tomorrow? So I have 275 grams of hard red. Now I'm going to do 275 grams of hard white. So I don't know, we'll see how I'm doing after the sourdough. I may go ahead and make that. We're gonna have I've totally blanked. Crab dip tonight. So I'm gonna be making French bread later. I don't know what that was. So I may go ahead and make the English muffins when I finish this. That way I can maybe chill and work on school stuff tomorrow. I don't know, I haven't decided yet. So I weighed out my 550 grams of my wheat berries. I like to mix them up even though it doesn't matter because I can mix them after it melts. I don't know. I just feel like it might incorporate better. So I'm going to turn this on again. It gets really loud. I'm sorry. About 100 grams or 120 grams of the sourdough starter that I fed yesterday. So I fed my starter yesterday and I took out about 120 grams and put the rest of my starter in the fridge. That way it'll keep for about a week, and then I'll feed it next weekend and do something with it, or just do something with the discard or freeze the discard. Be right back, my meal is finished. So as you can see, I left him on the whole time that was milling. It did not take very long to mill 550 grams of wheat berries. And again, my suggestion is find recipes that have the weights, because the cool thing is 550 grams of wheat berries is going to yield 550 grams of flour. If you try to measure with a cup of wheat berries does not give you a cup of flour. I want to say it gives you, I can't remember exactly, it's going to be over a cup, like a cup and a third, a cup and a half, something. It's just not 1-to-1. So I have, if I can move this over, I have my water in my sourdough starter all mixed together. Now I'm going to take and mix in my flour. My pantry's open, sorry. My husband actually, a couple of weekends ago, I have wire shelving underneath the wood, but I hated it because like the jars and stuff up top especially, it's hard to get those centered just right to where they didn't want to like fall over. So we took like maple plywood, which it's not plywood, but whatever it is, maple board. And then we put like a baseboard or crown molding, whatever this is, in front of it to cover that wire part that hung down. So much better, so much more sturdy. I love it. And I'm going to incorporate this flour in. And then last weekend we had like a situation because my son woke me up at 1 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning and he was like, "Mom, I need you." And I was like, "Okay." He's like, "I need you now." So I got up and I followed him. I'm just in an oversized t-shirt because, you know, I'm sleeping. No socks on. He's like, "I heard this noise in the basement." And I was like, "Okay." And he was like, I didn't know what it was because he was laying on the couch with our dog Cinnamon. And I was like, "Okay." And he goes, "So I'm going to investigate." "Okay." And he goes, "All your shelves are leaning over." So I have 4 canning shelving units in the basement. And they're all leaning like dominoes that are about to fall completely down. Fortunately, on my far left canning shelf was my pressure canners. And when they went to lean to fall, the pressure canners braced them and it kept all of my shelves from falling. It was a huge mess. So I held him up and he started pulling my cans off, or my jars, whatever you want to call them. And then my husband came down. He was like, "Are you okay?" And so then when he saw, I was like, "If you can hold this, I'll help him take the jars off," because I'm also dealing with frozen shoulder. But fortunately, my range of motion is getting more like back to normal. So he held them. So at 1 o'clock in the morning, we're moving jars off our shelves. Fortunately, I only lost, I thought it was like 10 or less. It was less. I think it was more around maybe 3. I know I lost, I think it was either chicken broth or beef broth, a jar of spaghetti sauce, and maybe 1 or 2 other jars of something similar. But I was very, very fortunate, and I'm glad because that was a really, really bad week already, and that was just the icing on the cake. So we went later Saturday morning and got some wire canning shelves from Lowe's and got those set up on Saturday. So now we have wire shelves downstairs. The other shelves are what was here, when I moved in, which lasted for a while, but I guess I just have canned too much and it was too heavy. I'm trying to keep my thing from tipping over. There we go. So I'm just gonna wash my hands. I'm gonna put this in my proofer, which I think I've shown you before, but I will show you again. New England, it gets really cold. We got split systems, so my house is a little bit warmer, but it's still kind of cool. And there you went again. I gotta figure out why this is tipping over. Ah, I found it. So I'm gonna cover my sourdough dough. I'm sure there's another way to say that. And I'm gonna put it in my proofer. And every 30 minutes to an hour, I'm gonna fold it over into itself. One thing that I learned doing sourdough bread with fresh milled flour is most of the time you do with store-bought flour, you do an overnight rise in the fridge. Apparently, I was told this because I was inquiring about it when I made sourdough bread for the first time. If you do that with fresh milled flour, it will be too sour to eat. So I can have sourdough bread the same day I started making it, not counting feeding the starter, but the day that I actually start mixing the bread and the dough and making it, it's all in the same day, which is awesome. So I will come back, show you how we fold it over, and I'll do this for like 4 to 6 hours. And then I will come back and show you what it looks like after the 4 to 6 hours, how to shape it before it goes in the oven, and all of that good stuff. So stay tuned. Okay, so actually I added a little bit too much water. I shouldn't have added the whole 475 grams, but that's okay. I just added less water this time with the salt that I'm going to incorporate here in a few minutes when I do my first turn or folding, whatever you want to call it. So I'm just trying to get the water to dissolve the salt a little. So I'm going to put it in my proofer as well. That way it kind of stays warm. And another thing with sourdough bread, a lot of people use filtered water. I don't, because our water here doesn't mess up my sourdough bread, so I'm fortunate in that regard. So most people use filtered water to feed their fresh milled flour sourdough starter and for their sourdough bread. Just heads up. Okay, so I'm back with my sourdough stuff. Like I said, I almost messed up with the water, but I think I'll be fine. So now I just added my water and my salt in here. And I'm just folding it over onto itself to get that incorporated. You can see I'll move down a little bit, maybe that will help. And I'll also, at this point, sometimes before, I wet my tea towel or cotton towel, forget the name of it, flour sack towel that I put on top of my stuff. So I'm just incorporating all my salt water into my dough, and then I'm going to keep it in my proofer, and again every 30 to 60 minutes I'm going to come in and fold the dough over like this and onto itself. So in about 4 to 6 hours, normally it's closer to 4 with the proofer. If your house is colder, it's going to take a little bit longer, so probably closer to 6 or more. But here's what my dough looks like now. And so it's going to go in my proofer, and in about 30 minutes I'm going to come back and fold it. I decided to make the English muffins. So when I come back in, I already have the dough going in the mixer for that, and I've already started the video for that. So once I come in to fold this over again, I'm going to start my mixer for my English muffins. So, and get that dough going for that. Okay, so it's been about 30 minutes. So I'm going to take and fold this over again, and then put it back in the proofer. And then I'm just going to keep doing that over and over. And here in a second, I'm going to start my English muffins, kneading those, and then we'll get back to this. Okay, so I'm ready to start getting ready to bake the sourdough. So you can tell that it's a lot bigger because it's proofed up before so much. So I'm going to fold it in one more time, and then I'm going to dump it on my parchment paper, and I have a little bit of flour on there because that works better for me. And then I'm going to take and I'm going to fold it in one more time, and then I'm going to get the oven ready to preheat. And I'm going to preheat my oven with my Dutch oven in there for up to 480 degrees. And then I'll put this in there and cook it for about, I think it's 20 minutes. And then I drop the temperature down and cook it for another 25 minutes. But I will double check those times, and I will have the recipe posted. This is Grain in Small Places sourdough recipe. So I'm gonna make it kind of tight because that makes you have a higher bowl or however you say it. So I'm gonna do this, and then when it starts preheating and it's almost preheated, I'm gonna do this one more time to get it super, super tight. And it's very sticky today, probably because of the little bit of extra water I added. But this will set up a little bit, and then I will do it again, like I said, one more time before it's finished preheating. So I'm going to get my Dutch oven in the oven and start preheating my oven for 480 degrees. Okay, so what I thought I recorded, which I didn't record, I ended up taking it off the parchment paper because it was sticking and it was too much of a pain. So I just removed it, I floured my surface, and I put my ball here. So, and I was able to fold it in tighter, which is what I want. So it cuts up higher into more of a ball rather than like a flat disc shape. So my oven is at 441, so I'm just folding it in one more time, and I may fold it in one more time before it's completely preheated. So when it gets to 480, I will put this in the oven, and it will cook at 480 for 20 minutes. And then after the 20 minutes, I will put it in, or decrease the temperature to 450 and take the lid off, and then it will cook for another 25 minutes. At some point, I will score it with my lame, and yeah. So a few more minutes, we'll be able to get it in, and it will start baking. Okay, so I folded it just a little bit more and pushed it down a little bit tighter in the center. I'm at 478, so this thing is about to beep at me any second, telling me it's ready. So now I'm going to take it. There we go. And put it on my parchment paper. And then I'm going to put a little bit of flour. You could use rice flour. Again, this is just some of my old flour that I had. I've not gotten really good at the decorations. Apparently fresh milled flour it doesn't work as well. Probably need to change the blade of my lathe, but you make a nice deep cut. Sometimes I try to do a little decoration, like wheatgrass or something that should resemble wheatgrass. It doesn't always. Most of the time it doesn't. That's okay. Still tastes good, which is the main issue. So I'm going to rinse my hands, put my pot holders on. It's just going in my Dutch oven that has been preheating inside the oven as well. And I'm going to cook it for 20 minutes. And then I will show you the finished product. So it's going to cook at 20 minutes at 480 degrees. Then I will reduce the temperature down to 450 and take the lid off, and then it will cook for another 25. So I just pulled my sourdough out of the oven. I made the mistake, and after 20 minutes the first time, I didn't decrease the heat down to 450. It stayed at 480 for about 15 more minutes until I realized it. Then I corrected it, so I pulled it out just a few minutes early. Here's my bread. So I'm going to sit you guys down, and then I'm going to lift it out of my Dutch oven and put it on my cooling rack. So I will show you the finished product on the cooling rack, and voila. So it's a little bit flatter than I like. Normally it poofs up higher, but I think that was because of my water fiasco and maybe a few other things. Fresh milled flour is a different ball game, but it's not super flat. I think the first one I did was flatter, probably about this high. So it's pretty good, so I can't complain. If you like what you see, subscribe and save and follow, and I hope you guys stick around and see more.